So, welcome, Doug Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. I'm very happy that you are here. And today we wanted to talk a little bit about the current situation surrounding QAnon, Kavanaugh, that whole theater, martial law, military tribunals. And what is disturbing for me is that they tried to stop Kavanaugh, but I don't believe that, actually, because those points that they could have brought up against him, those points were never talked about. Instead, they brought in sex.
Yeah.
And with a very silly story, I have to say. But what they could have done was, he's a strong supporter of the Patriot Act.
Mm-hmm.
He has no problem with the NSA collecting metadata. He does not think that it is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. They could have brought up many things, but instead they brought up sex. And therefore, I have a strong feeling that it was not really meant to stop him. And the other thing is that for years and years and years, so many people in the alternative media were harping on, martial law, oh my God, they will declare martial law, they will round us up, march us to the FEMA camps, and we are all going to die.
Yeah.
And the same people now are saying, well, yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate, but martial law has to be declared. It's a good thing. It's for the others.
I have to be honest with you. I haven't been following this whole political mess for some time. I just really withdrew my consciousness from it quite a bit. I mean, I pay attention to little details, but you got a great point there. Now, you had brought it to my attention that some of these alternative people and I know who you're talking about, were adamant against it. Now, all of a sudden, think it's a great idea. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, you don't want martial law in your country. Martial law means shoot first, ask questions later, kill your family and not be held accountable. Now, we already have the NDAA, which was passed by the last administration, the Obama administration, which makes an American citizen a suspect, right? You could be labeled an enemy combatant and be thrown in jail with no trial, no due process. These laws are on the books already. What we see here, what I am aware of, I don't know all the ins and outs of the Kavanaugh thing. I know the basics, and the QAnon, I haven't followed it. But what I see occurring here is just this massive divide and rule. People seem to think that Trump is some kind of anti-establishment outsider who's come to, save the day. And I would be very, very skeptical of that. This guy has connections to the Council on Foreign Relations and also an organization known as AIPAC. Now, in the United States, you do not get into that position without the nod of approval of these two organizations. And it's been this way for a long time. He was a Manhattan real estate mogul that was indebted to the bankers. Like, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. And you don't get to be a player in that game without serious insider connections. So that's something to consider. Another thing that I usually like to bring to people's attention is that the United States is a corporation on paper. In 1871, after the Civil War, just around the time of the Reconstruction period, the United States incorporated. It was about February 1871. So since that time, it's been a corporation. Its headquarters are District of Columbia, which is its own independent city-state. People need to realize this. So anyone that's in that position is basically the CEO for corporate America. And it's good to understand this to give us kind of a framework. So in a corporation, who is the CEO beholden to? The shareholders. Well, who are the shareholders? Well, the lobbyists, the organizations like the CFR, the money people that put these people into the positions. Because in America, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have elections. We have selections. We have not had a representative system of government for a long time. I would say since the times of Woodrow Wilson, which is 1913, but probably before that too. But 1913, I would say, is the year that, America really lost control of its country, because we had the establishment of the Federal Reserve Bank and also the introduction of the graduated income tax, two things that Americans fought against for years, this taxation of their labor. And so we had those two organizations set the foot of the international bankers in this country, and I think we've been under infiltration and control since then. So somebody comes along on the Republican ticket, Americans go out because they're so sick of the whole Bush-Clinton dynasty. They're sick of all these, cutout candidates, that these transparent fake phonies. So they think, they've got a real people's champion. And I think the powers that be have played on this. So what an ingenious thing to put him there, because this has caused division in this country like I've never seen in my whole life. This country is so divided. It's unbelievable. You've got violent protesters on the left, some of them marching with communist flags. It blows my mind. These college kids advocating socialism and Marxism don't even know what the hell it is. And then you've got the other side that's all for this particular sitting president. He's going to drain the swamp, right? And he's going to purge all the socialist elements from this country. I would not bet on it. I wouldn't hold my breath. I did watch his speech to the UN, which usually I could only tolerate maybe about 2 or 3 minutes of a politician speaking at best. But I watched it because I was curious. And he did say some things that, okay, he's talking about American sovereignty, but I doubt his sincerity. To me, he's just an egomaniacal figurehead. And I think that on the part of the players that manipulate these people into positions of power, that it was an ingenious move to put him in place. Because as we know, the elites operate through divide and rule, and never has this nation been so divided. And now there's a caravan of something I was reading this morning, about 15,000 refugees heading towards the southern border just in time for the midterms. So this will probably create a national crisis, because he's saying he'll pull out the military to deal with this. It's great timing. But what I see is an agenda that goes beyond just the left figurehead and the right figurehead. It's a force that controls both sides, and it's been this way for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Oh, yes,
Probably
yes,
not.
Yes. Have you seen the videos where those people that are marching toward the U.S. border were getting paid?
I read an article about it, yeah. Yeah, so what we have is a force that manipulates both sides. It's just always been this way. It's the money people. This is an oligarchy. It's not a democracy. It's supposed to be a republic, but it hasn't been for a long time. It's basically an oligarchy disguised to appear as a democratic republic where you have freedom of choice. Let me tell you, the globalists, the elites, had their eye on Trump for a long time because he's a billionaire with a lot of heavy connections to establishment insiders. They're watching this guy. He was talking about a presidential run like 20 years ago or more. And anybody who's aware of his past, he was a staunch Democrat for years. Very tight with the Clintons. They were friends. They go way back. I know that his organizations donated at least $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. So you can't tell me that he's all of a sudden going to jump on the Republican ticket as the establishment outsider, come to get rid of all the criminals and save us. And, the whole QAnon thing, I'm very sketchy about it. There's been researchers out there for the last decade or more talking about the white hats, and they're going to come and make all these arrests, and they make all these predictions that never happen. And then when they don't happen, they have an excuse. Oh, my insider sources said that this, and here's the excuse why. And it's just completely it's a charade. And, people shouldn't hang their hats on something external to come and save you, because it ain't going to happen. There's no God's going to come and save us. Certainly no politician. There's no manufactured ideology that you could buy into that's going to make everything better. It's an individual decision to willfully change your consciousness. And that's what makes this so difficult, is that it's hard work to do that, and nobody wants to do it. We want Daddy to come save us.
Yeah. And certainly, Trump played his role quite well. I remember when he was still candidate, Trump, when he said things like, well, if I were president, you would be in jail, to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And then this Q phenomenon comes along. And I mean, people don't have a clue who or what Q really is.
Mm-hmm.
And it would not be the first time, let's say the entire hippie movement was infiltrated with by the CIA. It was
well, there was a creation of it.
Yeah, sure. So it would not be the first time that they do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been doing it for quite a while.
Yes.
And because Q tells you that martial law is coming and military tribunals for American citizens are okay because Q tells you so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and people buying into this, it's unbelievable to me. It's just unbelievable. You don't want martial law in your country. I mean, if you remember back a few years back, we had the Boston bombings. Remember, it was a marathon race, and I think it was false flag all the way. As a test run for martial law, what did we have? We had a big city. Boston's a big city on lockdown. It was like a ghost town, house to house. The military or the SWAT teams putting innocent people at gunpoint. You want that in your city? Maybe it's not to arrest the criminals within the houses of government. Maybe it's to create this totalitarian superstate that's been in the making for a long time. Maybe it's a war against the people. And things like QAnon are there to distract and deceive people thinking, oh, they're going to come arrest the bad guys. They don't arrest their own. You know what they do? They sit behind the scenes and clank their glasses of champagne and laugh at you, scurrying around, because you haven't got it figured out yet that it starts here. It starts with the individual willing to stop complying with this crap, to stop playing this game, because that's all it is. You keep getting played over and over. And I've seen people in the research community that understand that it's the same force controlling both sides, and suddenly they're jumping on this bandwagon, and I'm very taken aback by that. I think we need to be skeptical and not put false hope into something that's, and the way that, from reading my book, I call it the consortium, which is basically a network of organizations. There's a force behind that can't be identified. They'll pass you in the street with a smile and a wave. You'd never know it. But that force behind this consortium, the game they play is psychological manipulation. This is a war on human consciousness. And I'm glad you mentioned the hippie movement. I wanted to recommend this book to your viewers. Just reading it for the second time, it's phenomenal. It's called Tavistock Institute, Social Engineering the Masses by Daniel Estelin, if you could see that. Yeah. This book lays out how this psychological game is played and a lot of the organizations behind it. Tavistock being probably one of the major ones, but also connected to agencies like the Esalen Institute, the Fabian Society, the CFR, and all these others that we talk about. What Tavistock is, it was a psychological warfare unit that was developed in Britain towards the end of World War II. And it became this enormous think tank. They used psychology as a weapon, and they pushed the emotional hot buttons to set one group against another. And it's worked effectively throughout history, so why change it if it's still working for them? And that's what's being done. So the QAnon thing, what it's doing is it's generating this false hope, I think.
And hopium.
Yeah, we have the NDAA. We got martial law. They'll just pull your children off the streets and throw them into a camp. No due process. You won't know where they are. Is that what you want? That's going to lead to freedom? Yeah. Okay. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Something is... No, it's gone. No. There was something on the screen but it's okay. Everything is fine. So yeah, I guess we are still stuck in this child-parent paradigm. You know, we always, yeah, well, not everybody, but a lot of people, they just want to have somebody to sort it out for them.
Yes.
And that is exactly what Q is selling.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do anything, grab your popcorn, stay calm, watch the show. The state is going to go against the state. Yeah, sure.
But if we understand that both sides are controlled essentially by the same force, it's and they will create this political theater to make it look like opposing factions. Meanwhile, they're behind the scenes pulling the strings into the direction they want this game to go. And that's really important to understand, these dialectics. And that's, again, like I mentioned, I've seen people that understood this that now are jumping on this bandwagon. This is the most important election in American history. Oh, yeah, it's really going to change this time if you go vote, just like it did last time. I mean, the whole system is completely corrupt and rigged. Why do we think that the system, using the system itself to fix the system, is ever going to work? It never did before. Or why do we think that going out in the street and holding up signs screaming for reform is going to change a damn thing when we don't change? Things don't change because we don't change, because the consciousness of the people needs to change. What we see with these corrupted misleaders is a reflection of the collective consciousness. The outer can never change until the inner does, and that's just how it is. Now, these elites know this. They have a very deep, intimate understanding of human psychology, and that is their greatest weapon. It is a mind game. And I think that people need to really claim their own sovereignty, free their consciousness, take their thought processes back, think for themselves, take a step back and evaluate before you jump on this bandwagon that someone's going to come and save you and purge this system of the corruption. They have their players on both sides of the aisle. Now, I'm sure that there are good people in the houses of Congress and the Senate and all that, but the corruption is so deep, they just play both sides. And again, the ones that have any real decision-making power are vetted by these agencies like AIPAC. They're selected. So you're given a choice of one of their guys to choose. Well, where's the actual choice in that? You're choosing one of their guys. So they'll, like I said, it was ingenious what they've done by putting this guy in there. Oh, he's a people's champion, and he's going to drain the swamp. And how many policies has reversed? You see, they all do the same thing on their campaign trail. They'll promise you this, then they get in there and they reverse their policies. Syria is a big one, because the whole run up to the election, he's saying, we have no business in Syria. What are we doing in Syria? And the people are like, yeah, he's right. Well, then he gets in. What does he do? Sends troops to Syria on some ridiculous charade of this chemical attack. It was nonsense. So it's the same shit we're seeing. He's reversing the policy. They all do it. And that right there should be a red flag. The fact that he is on the strings of Israel should be a red flag. The fact that he's given all of this military aid, billions of dollars worth to Saudi Arabia, one of the most brutal regimes on the planet, that should be a red flag as well. The fact that he extended the Afghanistan war, the 17-year war against terror, which is nonsense, that should be a red flag. And also some other things that he's done too. You really got to think. It's, what's the saying? By their fruits ye shall know them, right? But no, we want to look at this Q stuff. Oh, they're coming to arrest the criminals. Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath. I really wouldn't. You know, what else has he done? Yeah, he reversed an executive order that allowed the police to become more militarized. He just did this last year, to where now the police, they're like paramilitary units now, rocket launchers and all kinds of high-tech weapons. And I've said in one of my articles, okay, well, who are they preparing to fight? The bad guys in government? No, you. They're training in urban combat for when they stir up, smack the hornet's nest and the people are out in the streets killing each other. They're there for that, to quell the masses. So people need to get past their damn political ideologies, flush it down the toilet where it belongs, and come together in a common unity, in common sense. That's the only thing that is going to ever set us free. And I don't see it happening.
Most certainly not. And but with that savior programming, we have so many avenues to go along So many flavors out there. The classic ones. Oh, Jesus is coming any minute now.
Yeah.
The blue chicken cult is going to save the day with the Sphere Alliance.
I haven't heard that one. or the benevolent ETs are going to come whisk us away on their intergalactic arcs. And this, you're right. This takes on many permutations. The religious one, that's ancient, and I want to say a good example of psychological control. Look at the scandal in the Catholic Church here in America. It has blown through the roof with what just happened in Pennsylvania in August. The state, I want to say the district attorney, but it wasn't. It was the state, not the DA, but prosecutor, something like that, detailed this almost 1,000-page report on the incidents in multiple dioceses with all this corruption and pedophilia. And this is mainstream global news for years, and still a billion people will get on their knees and fawn to this Pope, who's a Jesuit Marxist, by the way, and give their minds away when this institution has been exposed. And if you do look at the history of the church, one of the most corrupted and violent institutions in all of human history, and yet still a billion people will give their power away to that. It's very intriguing to me. What is this quirk in human psychology that we always want to externalize and give our power to some external authority, whether it's a god, some guru, some ideology, or a political figurehead? That's what humanity needs to get past, and I think that's rooted in the victim consciousness. And that starts when we're children. We're programmed into this. We're victims, and when we adopt that kind of mentality, the only thing we could ever experience in manifest reality is to be victimized or to be surrounded by other victims because of, like energy. I don't want to get too, hokey, but that's just how it works. So to me, there's a very intimate connection between the energy of the psyche and energy of manifest reality. And I believe that these behind-the-scenes controllers absolutely know this, and they work it to their advantage through the manipulation of human psychology, of consciousness.
What do you think, when did this start for humanity?
I would say thousands of years ago. It almost seems like, if you look at recorded history, that the one factor that's always been present is tyranny, as if there was always this kind of unseen war, I guess, between sovereignty or actual freedom and tyranny. And that's what it appears to be going on for a long, long time. And the monarchs of old and, the rulers of old, it seems to have always employed this divide and rule kind of tactic to allow tyranny to reign and to control. And I would suggest that if individuals don't conquer their own inner tyrant, call it the ego, call it what you will, that we can never be free, that it's impossible. That's just my perspective, but.
Yeah. And thinking that somebody else is going to do it for you also keeps you away from doing your own work.
That's correct. Yes. It almost seems. Now, I liken reality in this world to kind of a circus bazaar, like this bizarre, macabre carnival. And you have all these magicians selling their wares. Oh, politics, religion, ideologies, television, games, blah, blah, blah. And you can you got to buy one of them, though. And it's all designed to keep us externalizing instead of internalizing. I see it. And I believe you're right with that. And so the more we do this, the further we move away from that inner connection to the core of what we are, to ourselves. And these players that do this, hats off to them. And you got to respect your enemy, because they are geniuses. I don't agree with what they're doing. I think they're absolutely sinister, but man, they're not stupid. They're very intelligent, and they know more about human psychology than we do. So I would suggest to people too to, examine the contents of your psyche. Look at the things that question why you believe something. And that's the hard work, Judith, is the constant reevaluation of what we think we know and shining the light of scrutiny onto our beliefs. Nobody wants to do that because it's hard. And I think what happens is that we identify with whatever ideology, whether it's religion or they call it identity politics in this country, because that you identify with that figurehead or with that ideology. And I think the reason people are so afraid to do this inner work is because it's like a shattering of their very identity, and that's scary. But I think it's rewarding because it'll leave a blank slate, and then we could step into the realm of self-creation, and that's what it's about. You want to know what's going to save you? You are. And that starts here, and in the heart too. It's not just intellect. I think it's a balance between the heart and the mind. And I would suggest that if humanity doesn't get this right, that the world that's about to unfold is not going to be a pretty place. It's certainly not going to be a utopia. Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But the Savior also caters to our laziness.
Yes. Because you don't have to do anything. You just,
You have to believe
this or buy this, and you'll be saved. And how come over all these thousands of years humanity hasn't figured out that that's not true? The whole Jesus thing, they've been saying he's been coming back for 2,000 years. Why would he want to into this mess? We just hang him again. It'll take about a day before we nailed him up again. Why the hell would he want to come back here?
Yeah, and I mean, what's up with all these crosses? It's if we say, okay, that was a real story, then that was an execution tool.
Yeah.
So let's say he died on an electric chair. Would you run around with a mini electric chair around your neck?
That's a great point. Let's look a little deeper. What is that whole image? You're venerating a murdered victim nailed to a cross. It stimulates the victim mentality we were just talking about, in my opinion. So if you venerate victimhood, what will you have in your experience? You'll be victimized. And, there's very powerful forces at work. However, in comparison to the general population, it's very few. They have power because we allow it. We've given our power away. That's why I really do believe that the solution lies in the realm of the human heart and the realm of human consciousness, because you've got 7.6 billion people now, or something like that, ruled by a handful, in comparison. And throughout these centuries, these millennia, human beings have given their power away to psychopathic tyrants. What is this? What is going on? What is this quirk within the human psyche that continues to do this and expects that anything positive is going to come as a result? Never will. So while you're hanging your hopes on QAnon, the savior, come and arrest all the bad guys, I bet you. Now, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. It's just that I'm skeptical. Maybe there is truth to it. Maybe he's coming. Maybe they're going to make these criminal arrests. I doubt it. Maybe. But I think, Judith, there'll be a day, a couple years from now, we'll talk and say, oh, remember a few years ago when everyone thought that, they were going to come and purge this system from all the bad guys? Yeah, we're going to look back. Remember those people that fell for that?
Yeah, I mean, we had the same narrative a couple of years ago when I guess it was Drake and David Wilcock. The mass arrests are around the corner.
Yeah, yes. He's one of the ones I was referring to, and there was a guy called Fulford as well. Now, these guys have been on about this for the last decade. the cabal and my insider sources. He's the one I was talking about. Well, my insider, he'll make a prediction. The insider sources say that this event will happen. That doesn't happen. And there's an excuse why. Always an excuse why. Same with that event you were talking about. No, it's coming. Then when it doesn't, oh, well, and people keep falling for the same shit over and over again. It leaves me very incredulous. People will fall for the same shit over and over.
I think, first of all, we do not have to wait for any saviors. You are totally right when you are saying we are our own saviors.
Yes.
And I mean, really, if we were to detach from the system, not paying attention anymore, not giving our energy to this corrupt system by voting and fighting over Democrats, Republicans, Q, blah, 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 they would crumble away.
That's right. You know, that's a great point. I think that's the great first step, is to, in your consciousness, withdraw your agreement with it and stop playing. What if, let's just take America as an example. We got 328 million people. What if we all just said, we're not paying income tax anymore? Are they going to arrest us all? They can't. Or what if we all just said, you know what? You guys go play your games. We're going to not play this game anymore. We're going to operate on a community level where we respect each other's rights to be individual and yet work together in cooperation. What would happen? The system would fall away. I mean, we really need to start considering what a new human experience might look like. I mean, at least contemplating is the first step. And then, of course, yes, real world action is required. We can't just sit and meditate and hold a crystal and think some utopia is going to emerge. It takes real world action. And, you know, people ask me, well, Doug, what could I do? What could I do? And there's a couple things. One, last year I started to just volunteer my time in the community a little bit. Helped get 2 homeless people off the streets. We assisted a lot of veterans. Brought food to little children. My band, every year we do these benefits and helped rescue animals. So it's a little something. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but a little bit goes a long way. Another thing, in America, I don't know how the laws are in Europe. In America, you want a solution? Homeschool your kids. For God's sake, get them out of the hands of these Marxists, because that's what the school system, well, it was created like that, but it's really become center stage for Marxist indoctrination. We see it all over the campuses here. Get your kids away from the mind doctor. So there's 2 starts right there of things you could do. You know, give a little bit of your time and make your immediate community a little bit better. And if everyone did just a little, it would make a major difference. So there's 2 solutions, but you're right. It starts within the willingness to remove our consent from our own enslavement.
Yeah, and you don't have to riot in the street to make that happen.
That's going to make things worse. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're counting on, because we've got, you know, these groups like Antifa and others. They're funded by these, you know, multi-billionaire Fabian Marxists and set at war against, and these people, now there's paid agitators. We know this on both sides, but the ones that blindly follow and get in clashes, you're playing right into the hands of your own enslavement. You need to step back. You know, the whole Johnny get your gun, rah, rah, that's just going to cause more violence and give them an excuse for, you know, rounding up citizens and martial law and all these things. So if you think martial law is a good thing, you better rethink your position.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting how they are at least trying to get a consensus that
yes,
this is a good thing because
yeah,
it's for the others.
Yeah. Like I said, I wasn't aware of that, and you brought it to my attention, and I looked at it. I was in shock, absolute shock. Like, what the hell are you people going for? Oh, yeah. Yeah, what? military on the streets with a curfew. You get shot on sight if you're out past 7 p.m. or yeah, that sounds great. And then, oh, but it'll just be temporary till they make the arrests. What is this nonsense? And people falling for it with their agent. It's at least think about it. Don't just blindly buy into this. Like, it's just at least remain, a healthy dose of skepticism is necessary before we blindly jump into anything. The public mind has been so manipulated and so programmed. You've really got to be cautious of where you're going to put your hope, your faith, your attention, and maybe take a step back and reevaluate. That's my advice. I don't have all the answers, never pretend to. I'm not an expert on anything. But from my perspective, this is something that can be very dangerous. So we need to really think it through.
Yeah, the idea, I mean, I do understand where they are coming from. They think martial law is required because when they will arrest the likes of Hillary Clinton and what have you, maybe other people will riot in the streets that are pro-Clinton, and so that we have some order, they need to declare martial law. First of all,
I think the powers that be, whatever we want to call them, Illuminati Consortium, whatever, the hidden controllers, which by now I think even the average person is starting to become a little bit aware that there's some force behind the scenes that's manipulating. At least I hope they are. But this force, whatever we're going to call them, they'd love to see a civil war in this country. Oh, they'd love it. Get the herd to kill each other makes our job easier, and then they'll roll in and pick up the pieces. And while all this shit's going on, nobody's talking about the 5G rollout. Nobody's really talking about Fukushima anymore. So yet another distraction to keep us from looking at things that are really important, I think. And the 5G, this is something that should be on everyone's mind, because the capabilities for surveillance are absolutely monumental. And we're talking about a massive control grid. And we're also talking about a massive increase in radiation and microwaves that could really cause serious damage to the environment and to animals and to people.
Thank you for bringing that up. My last interview with Harald Kautzweller was about 5G. And you're absolutely right. While people are bickering about QAnon and all other stuff that are going on, they are rolling out the smart gulag.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's already been rolled out in some cities here, I believe, Sacramento, California, Austin, Texas, other cities too. I'm not sure of all of them, but there was one report from, I believe, early August this year, where they installed the 5G equipment at a fire station in Sacramento, and some firefighters were experiencing memory loss and cognitive disruption until they moved away from the equipment and they got better. We've had a group of 200 scientists and doctors from over 40 countries come together to demand a moratorium until they could test this technology. We're talking about generating trillions of dollars in profits. They're not going to, we're the test subjects, the Americans, and wherever else they're going to roll this out. So the American people are the test subjects. So while this is occurring, don't hear the president talking about 5G much. I think, great, because we could increase our surveillance capabilities. And, this should be on the minds of everybody in the Western world, at least, where they have this technology coming, because the potential is just unbelievable. And then we have the whole artificial intelligence thing. We've still got hundreds of tons of radiation leaking into the Pacific Ocean every single day. They don't know how to clean it up. This is something, these are events that matter. And so while we're worried about being rescued from some savior, this shit's occurring. And people are blind to it. Well, we were more concerned about the football scores because it's football season in America, or we're more concerned about, I don't know, some celebrity or gossip or some shit. Meanwhile, these unbelievable events are occurring all around us and people just oblivious to it. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a wonderful distraction to the entire QAnon thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I'm obviously not from the States, so I will ask you if, and that is a big if, Trump wanted to arrest Hillary Clinton. Would he really need martial law and military tribunals for that?
Well, I think there would be certain legal parameters that would have to be followed, certain legal guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. If I were accused of what she's done, I'd already be rotting in a prison. If an average citizen were accused of these high crimes, yeah, we'd be hung already in the street. You know what I mean? So, again, I mean, yeah, I think that good people want to see justice. They want to see criminals brought to justice. And, of course, I do too. Who doesn't? But I just don't see them going after their own. Like I said, Trump and Clinton's go back a long way. They were friends, golf buddies, and, you know, this whole thing, I see it as theater. Maybe I'm wrong. I really don't know, but I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah. Yeah, me not either. I don't see it. I don't, yes, of course, people would like to see it. And he certainly stirred up that hopium with what he said during the debates.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. Mm-hmm.
I think that was part of the theater to make it look like there's an opposition here.
Yeah.
Again, he's reversed so many of his policies. Never really heard him mention the genocide in South Africa that's occurring either. You know, maybe slipped his mind. But yeah, the whole Israeli thing, I think, because his support of expansion to the West Bank is when AIPAC gave him the nod of approval. Okay, so here's what we'll do. We'll get you in, and you go after Iran, Syria, North Korea, whatever, and we'll create this distraction like you're going to arrest all the bad guys. And, I mean, it's caused this division that's just unbelievable. If people would just come together and just stop buying into these ideologies, that's the way to deal with this. But it's not. We're just more and more divided, you know, and it's going to cause more clashes, more violence. And if you think you're going to run out in the street with your gun, like, you know, I want to stay out of the way of that shit as much as I can. Maybe we could build something new from the ashes, you know, but I don't want to see that happen. Nobody wants to see that happen in their country. Civil war and these people at each other's throats. It's, you know, when will humanity ever learn?
I don't know. Maybe it's too early.
Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I think it's going to take some kind of cataclysm to shake people out of their slumber. I don't want to see it happen, but it's looking like now, like that it may be what needs to occur is some big event for people to finally wake up and realize how they've been played and how the generations before us have been played.
Yeah, although events like that usually bring more leaders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you're so traumatized, then it's easy to fall for somebody who says, I show you the way.
Yes. And a traumatized mind is highly suggestible. Mm-hmm. You know, we saw this after the events of 9/11. My goodness. There was no questioning. There was whoever he says we're going to war with, that's where we're going. No proof required, none necessary. So they played on the collective trauma. That's a good point, Judith. When the collective mind is traumatized, it's easy to manipulate. And it's done over and over and over again. And when we can wake up to this scam, maybe we have a chance, maybe. But yeah, we're definitely at the crossroads as a species. Not just Americans, not just Europeans. As a species, I believe humanity's at a crossroads where one road leads to this high-tech dystopia, technotronic control grid, which is already manifesting all around us, and the other leads to something new that we've never had before, a world free of tyranny. I don't think human beings have ever had this. So it's a new paradigm. It's something new. And I think we need to venture there, or else we're going to live in a global concentration camp. I hate to say it like that, but you know. And somebody else I'd like to recommend for your viewers. There was a guy back in the 70s. His name is Yuri Bezmenov. He was a defector. He defected to Canada. And then in the 80s, he started to come forward and give these lectures to tell people how psychological warfare works through subversion, through demoralization, how you just get one or two generations and you indoctrinate them, demoralize them, and then it just takes care of itself as time goes by. You do that through the education system, through the media, and through the political establishments. And boy, you look back at this guy's lectures in the 80s and you see it all unfolding all around us today, especially the education system. You've got people calling for Marxism in the streets, holding communist flags. It blows my mind. And I'm like, you guys need to read a history book, because under Marxism, well over 100 million people have been slaughtered, killed, relocated, starved to death. So it's going to work now, though. So the level of mind control to me is absolutely unbelievable. And these people have no grasp of history whatsoever. None. They think Marxism's a great idea. Well, it worked so well in Soviet Russia, didn't it? Yeah. When the Bolsheviks were killing 60 million Christians.
If he could, he would reverse the fall of the Soviet Union. That was the biggest catastrophe of the 20th century.
Yeah. That tells you a lot.
Yeah. Here's that Putin savior for you.
Yeah, and he's not part of the globalist, front man thing. I mean, come on. And then, Bezmenov, again, back to this KGB defector, he said that generally Marxist infiltration goes to the left, to the liberal side. And he also said, we consider them useful idiots. They're always the first ones to get lined up against the wall and shot. So, and here in America, we've got all these Hollywood types, these liberal jackasses just spouting their nonsense. I say, hey, stick to acting, will you? Stick to what you're good at. Shut your mouth, because you're not helping the situation here. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're sitting there thinking Marxism's a great idea. And so they're just useful tools, like Bezmenov said, useful idiots for this infiltration of Marxism into societies. It's really unbelievable. And then another thing is this whole shifting of the language to this whole politically correct controlling of the language and speech. See, we think in terms of language. So if you control the language, you control the mind. And now it's like you can't say anything. Someone will get offended. Some group will get offended and try to sue you. They'll try to shut you down in one way or another. We have the whole transgender thing. This is an absolute agenda behind this, again, to cause division and to demoralize. And it's working rather well.
And I think okay, in general, I don't care what anybody is doing between the sheets, unless it doesn't involve children or animals.
Right.
All right? So, that being said, I also think that this transgender agenda is a wonderful tool and a step towards transhumanism. Because once you have everybody confused about their own gender, it's easier to merge them with a machine.
Yeah, that's a good observation, I think. We are being conditioned towards this whole transhumanist thing, and people are oblivious to it, and that's a very, very good point. I think that's definitely a big part of it. And also, again, the soul division. And, it's gotten to the point, and I know this has happened in various areas of Europe too, Sweden. It's happening here, where parents are giving their little 4 or 5-year-old kids certain drugs like estrogen drugs or testosterone because they want to be the other gender. It's a 5-year-old. They don't know anything about sex yet. Let them be children. You know, it's just this whole everything. See, to me, the consortium group, this behind the scenes players, they're what I call their contortionists. They take everything and twist it and distort it and sell it back to you, normalizing everything. There's a group here that's got funding that's trying to normalize pedophilia. They call themselves, I mentioned it in one of my podcasts, but I forget the name. What was the name of that group? I'll think of it. But they're trying to normalize pedophilia as just another preference. And they're calling them minor attracted persons. See the euphemism with the language? Minor attracted persons. That's what they're calling it. And, they deserve rights too. No, they don't. Tolerance is a good thing, but too much tolerance is not a good thing. If you tolerate that, you deserve to fall. If you don't stand up against something like that, your nation will fall into ruin.
Yeah.
As we saw in ancient Rome.
Yeah, when you talked about this engineering of new ideas into a society, I thought about that we are already seeing this push to normalize pedophilia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which should have people up in arms.
Yeah.
But they're too busy distracted by whatever they're distracted by, whatever it may be. It could be in this country, like I said, football's a big one. Or maybe they're distracted by whatever distraction is a million to buy into. Meanwhile, this is unfolding. The 5G, these organizations with funding that want to make pedophilia just another preference like LGBTQP. Mm-hmm. And I say there's the line right there. Remember the Greek philosopher Aristotle, he said, tolerance and apathy are the last virtues of a dying society. Well, that's what we have here. We are on the cusp of falling into oblivion, not just here, but many areas of Europe as well. And the thing that people don't want to hear is that we have allowed it. We've allowed it. We give away our power. We're trained to do so. But at any time, and I think this is what the elites fear, is that any time we can take it back. It really is just a shift in consciousness and a shift in the heart, a shift in our perspective, and an unwillingness to cooperate or to consent to this nonsense anymore. It's a change of heart and a change of mind away. And I think that these rulers know this. And so they're pulling out all the stops now, creating all kinds of distractions and divisions to keep us from looking within, as you said earlier. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think it is safe to say that we cannot vote our way out of this misery, and we cannot wish our way out. That is simply not possible.
No, it's never worked before. What makes you think it'll work this time? And yet there's researchers out there who get this whole dialectic and the false left-right thing that are saying now, go out and vote in the midterms. It's like, no, instead I'm going to bring a plate of food to the homeless guy down the street because that will be time well better spent than going and playing this fucking game anymore. Excuse my language.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sometimes I get heated a little bit. And,
I love that passion.
Yeah, so all the QAnon bandwagon, please, just step back and think it through is all I'm asking. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't want to be belligerent to you. Just realize that both sides of this game are controlled by the same force. And how is one guy going to get into this corrupted network and bring that change? It's not. It has to come from within, and it starts with you. I just don't see any other way. So I'm just asking you to be a little skeptical, to step back and think it through. That's all.
Yeah. Would you say that in general, giving up let's call it savior mentality, that is a huge step in the right direction?
I think yes. I think that is a massive step in the right direction. And it's a grassroots thing. Like you said, you're not going to vote it in. This is an internal thing. Starts there first. Then from that first decision and the taking back your sovereignty, relinquishing, giving everything away to external authority, becoming your own authority, that's what sovereign is. Then you bring it out to your community, to your local surroundings. Teach others. I mean, you cannot awaken another. You could offer assistance and information, yes. But like I said, this is very grassroots and very individual thing. It's up to the individual first to, first of all, become aware and then withdraw. Like we said, I do not consent to play this game anymore. I'm not doing it. I will focus on what I can do to make my situation better. And it certainly ain't going and vote for one of their puppets. Sorry, I just don't think, I don't ever see that bringing anything positive. Because this, if you read some of the letters, see, everyone knows who Woodrow Wilson was. He was president in 1913 when the Federal Reserve came in, but so few have ever heard of his chief advisor, a guy called Colonel Edward Mandell House. And all you need to do is read some of his letters to Wilson at the time saying, both parties will come under our control. We will create the social security system to register all human biology as our chattel. These are the words he used. And this happened a century ago. So this is not some kind of new thing. This goes way back. And here he is in his letters to Wilson saying this is what we're going to do, and they've done it. So we're talking a century ago. Both parties will come under our influence. It's been that way ever since. And maybe now and then an outsider will sneak through, but they're not going to have the backing of the big movers and shakers and the big money interests, the Zionists, to really get manipulated into a place that's going to create any positive change to benefit the people. I just don't see it.
Yeah, me not either. And but as you said, I have to give them that. The way they are playing it is smart.
It's ingenious. Really is. Got to give your enemy credit, you know, because they are highly intelligent and they're very effective at very, very well versed in human psychology. I mean, psychology was born. You could probably bring it back to Freud and Jung. Now, whether these guys were part of it or not is debatable. I don't know. But one thing is certain, their brilliance was hijacked and stolen and twisted and used. And then organizations like Tavistock that we were talking about have brought it to a whole new level. And so, you know, we're manipulated at every turn. And it starts from the time you're children. Just realize you've been programmed. And I think people don't want to do that. They see the ego gets in the way. Not me. Can't get one over on me. It's happened since you were a child. Admit it. And then after you could take a step back and just entertain the possibility, okay, I've been manipulated. Now what? And then maybe you could start to put the pieces together and eventually contemplate solutions, because that's what we need, is really coming together like this and sharing ideas and start talking about what the solutions are. Because I don't want to live in a 5G dystopia where I'm microchipped or, you know, your every move is monitored. You know, when I went to visit Greg and Cheryl in Virginia in August, we went out to one of the shopping malls. All the appliances are smart now. Smart TVs, smart refrigerators, smart stoves, smart washing machines. Imagine all of this connected into the cloud. There will not be a thing that's not known about you. Zero privacy whatsoever. I don't want to live in that world.
I think there's no longer a need to be chipped. You know why? We have so many nanobots in ourselves.
Yeah. And I believe that's a big part of the chemtrail agenda.
Yeah.
I really do.
And you have it in food, in water, you have it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Basically everything, and it leaches copper out of your body system. And then the copper is replaced with barium or strontium.
Yeah.
So why should they chip you?
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, you had Musk talking about the company Neuralink and the product called Neuralace, which is a brain implant that connects you to this Internet of Things. But you got a good point. I mean, and I do believe that we have been breathing in nanotechnology and heavy metals for a long time. And I've asked that too. We're filled with all these heavy metal particulates. How will that react to the 5G microwaves? What happens when you put metal in a microwave oven? Basically explodes.
Yeah. And that is one of the reasons why it is smart to get rid of the heavy metals in your system.
Yeah, through chelation or whatnot.
Yeah. And when I was talking to Harald, he explained to me that they can, even with that technology, not only 5G, they had it for quite a while, but he explained to me that they invented a supplement that is getting rid of these nanobots in the brain that create artificial synapses.
Wow.
Yeah. And he always tests it. And he said for 3 days, he felt like the first day was like somebody put soda water in his head, and he could feel like there were certain neurons going bang, 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 and he could even observe that when a certain train of thought was going through his mind, it was cut off. The second when he felt that chung, chung, chung.
Wow.
And he explained to me that they can transfer certain images, ideas, and memories that are definitely not yours.
Yeah.
And so let's say they would like to stir up the shit in a certain region, they can do that. And they tested it with the so-called Arab Spring.
Right, yeah. Wow. That's a real scary thought, Imagine we have all these particulates in us already that we could be elated or depressed or whatever from a distance. Yeah, do you think that relates to the whole Mandela effect that people are talking about with messing with memory? Yeah. I know I quoted Tesla in that book you read about how the Earth and all biological systems operate between 6 and 8 hertz of frequency. So my question was like, okay, with the heavy metals from the chemtrails and the interaction between, say, HAARP and this other technology, because he said in that quote, we could control the entire mental system of people on the whole planet, maybe. And I thought, okay, maybe that's the purpose of it. So that's just a frightening thought.
Yeah, that 5G thing is a mass surveilled gulag.
Yeah.
Where your fridge has an IP, everything has an IP.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, I listened to some people in the UK, and they pointed out that in certain areas where they already have the 5G going, there are no birds anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
No more birds. And the kids some of them are constantly bleeding noses.
Oh my God. See, like I say, it's human beings are the test subjects.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's frightening. I know that I read the proposed moratorium from this group of scientists and doctors we talked about, and they were very concerned about DNA strand breaks, about increases in cancer. The DNA mutation is really took me aback because we've got so many things that already do that, like the GMO crops and whatnot. And they're really worried about strand breaks in the DNA. And they were worried about the effects on animals too, because how this technology works, you need several way stations because it breaks apart the technology and the data and reassembles it. So you need all these towers at multiple locations because the waves can't penetrate through trees. So that's going to increase the amount of electromagnetic energy and radiation that we're already swimming in. And people just go on. Well, I could download my movie in a minute then, what do I care? I get faster download speeds and I could watch the game in high definition or something. So we don't want to ever think about the seriousness of the situation because we're too mesmerized by the surface, as it were. And we better wake up.
Yeah, like the savior, it caters to your convenience.
Yeah. No one's coming to save us. We got to do it ourselves. Because no one can. That's the thing. Who needs saving? The victim. What happens when you rescue a victim? It kind of ties you to them. Now, assistance is something else. To assist, to help someone help themselves, that's not the same thing. But it's the victim that requires a rescue. And that's the mentality that human beings need to transcend, is this whole victim consciousness, this whole externalization to some outside authority. We need to transcend that or we will never be free because it's impossible. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, and this whole military tribunals and that is, re-establishing the belief in authority.
That's the main problem. That's one of the main problems with the human race, is this belief in external authority, whatever form it comes in. And, that needs to be transcended. And how could you ever be free when everything's externalized, when we're not sovereign? Can't. Because there will always be a consciousness that exploits that level of consciousness of the victim. Always. It's just always been that way. So human beings need to make a decision that we're no longer going to externalize. We're going to take it to a grassroots level and become empowered and bring that, shine the light a little bit onto this world, whatever it may be. It could be assisting the elderly. It could be creating art or music. It could be any number of things. Bring a little beauty into this darkened shit show. I recently took it up photography, just capturing a moment and bringing a little bit of beauty. I don't know who said it, but somebody once said, any fool could run towards the light, but it takes a true master to shine their light into the darkness. And I always like that metaphor, and I think that's what it's going to take, is for people to find their inner light and shine it into the darkness and fear no evil, because you're about to come face to face with it. That's my, I don't see any other way. Getting involved in the scuffles of going out with your gun, shooting at your brothers and sisters, it's just going to beget more violence. I mean, of course you have a right to defend your family and your person, of course. But I'm talking about, you're going to see these people just run in the streets, start shooting each other. That's not going to be the answer. It never was. So, yeah, I think we're getting ready to see things explode like a powder keg all around the world.
Oh, yeah. Here in Europe, it's amazing to see the downfall in slow motion.
Yeah.
With the refugees, the so-called refugees.
Yeah, I mean, that's another issue. See, what I see occurring, I call it an engineered cultural war.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Now, I live in an area of the country. It's a very economically depressed city. It's not a big city like Manhattan. It's a smaller city. Very economically depressed, though. And they bring in lots of refugees. The whole block where I live is lined with these big 2-3 family houses filled. Now, it's been peaceful. I haven't had any problems. This area is very multicultural. You have a bodega that's run by Afghani people. They just want to run their business. Another market run by Asians. What I observe is that people are people. what do human beings, generally speaking, want? We want to live our lives, be left alone, and raise our families in peace, right? In harmony. I would say the average human being thinks that way. But what they're doing is this is how it works. You bomb an area, usually that has lots of natural resources so you could steal them later. Bomb the living shit out of an area, displace millions of people, then open the gates of immigration, let them come pouring in. Now, granted, I'm sure there's a percentage that they just want to get away from the bombs and, salvage what's left of their families. But you got another percentage that hates your guts and wants to see your country destroyed. So, again, it's pitting humanity off against each other, and they'll bring people into areas that economically cannot assimilate them. It's impossible. Upsetting all the social systems and all this. And, an ideology like Sharia law is not compatible with European culture or American culture at all. So this is going to create a clash of civilizations. It's working. Your viewers might want to look into something called the Kalergi Plan. Read about that, because that's what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. And here in Germany, it's statistically every fourth day a German gets killed by a migrant.
Every day, yeah, my goodness.
Every fourth day.
Now, are you in an area that's massively affected by it?
Yes and no. The city itself, yes, but I live in an area that is not really touched by it.
Okay.
So if I were to go downtown, that's a whole different story.
Like no-go zones down there?
Yeah. But here in this area, it's still okay.
Okay, yeah.
If that might change, we will see.
Yeah, I mean, what Merkel's done is just absolutely horrific. Basically sold out the German people. And, now I'm all for people migrating to, like, say, if they're coming from a war-torn region or if they're just trying to make a better life. But there has to be vetting, or else if you just open it, then criminals can come in. And, it's just such a touchy situation, I know, for a lot of people, but you can't just massively open the doors. Come on in. You're upsetting the whole balance of your country. And so these misleaders that have done this is part of the Kalergi Plan and also the Fabian agenda to infiltrate cultures and get them at war with each other and turn everything upside down and steal sovereignty and freedom. It's just horrible.
Yeah. And what makes me especially angry is that in general, I would love to see a world without border, but not this one, with this forced globalist agenda, because that one that I'm thinking about would include no government.
See, I'd like to see that too. Is it possible in today's world? Probably not. I mean, to me, the three things that human beings really need to transcend, to be free, are money, government, and religion. Now, we could say that government and money is just another type of religion, so let's just say, yeah, religion, we got to get it. But I think those three things really need to be transcended. I mean, we could have a system of commerce that involves money, but what's the problem is interest in usury and slavery. We could have an exchange of commerce, but ultimately I think those three things need to be transcended if humanity's ever going to get out of this mess. Money, government, and religion. They all involve external authority. Yeah. And, the relinquishing of your sovereignty to take part in those games.
What do you make of the idea that there's another layer that we sometimes like to ignore, like, how shall I put it? The Akontic agenda, the unseen realms, the, let's say, evil spirits rants, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, see, that's a touchy subject because we can only speculate.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel, after looking at this shit for 20 years, now remember the consortium, all these groups that I listed, whatever force is behind them, to me, not quite human. Now, we don't have to think of it in terms of off-world. We don't. But at the very least, they're not human because they're psychopathic and they lack compassion, care, empathy, kindness. Those things are devoid, at the very least. But I do think that we're dealing with something that's definitely not human. Whether it's interdimensional, off-world, I can only guess. But as far as I'm concerned, in one way or another, it's not quite human, because this game has been going on for a long time. And it's almost, I look at it as a giant chess game, or in America, we have this board game called Risk. And it's a world map, and you place all your pieces, and then you roll the dice and send your armies in to overthrow. I see it as a giant game of Risk, that whatever powers are playing with one another, and we're like their, chessboard or something. And I think that's going to take humanity saying, no, we're not playing anymore, and leave them to their own design somewhere else. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I do think about these things, and I think you're really onto something to suggest that the power behind the throne of these consortium groups is not quite human.
Yeah, I think so too. And they've been playing it for longer than we can even imagine. And that is why they are really good at it.
Yeah. What can you think of the mentality that would stay stuck in that level of consciousness for so long as an oppressor? What's going on there? So we've got the oppressor-victim dialectic, which are really two sides of the same coin. The only way we think they're gonna set us free. No, it's up to us to set us free. And I'll say it. I know people who know me. I've said this for years. I say it over and again. Starts on the individual level. That's the only place it can start. Is with you, me. And then once we do that, we come together. Then we can contemplate solutions, which is necessary. And I think that not to sound, because I'm not a fear monger. I never was, but I think time's running out to get this right. I really do. There's so many things unfolding that if we don't decide where we stand, we're going to get swept up in it. And I don't want to see that. We've suffered enough, haven't we, the human race?
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, but I'm not really. Well, I guess I'm in between. I'm not really hopeful that we make it, but I'm also not overly pessimistic.
Yeah.
In terms of, oh, this is the end and we are going to die and the rest of us is going to slave away. Which we are doing anyhow.
Yeah, in many ways.
Yeah.
Many ways. But again, we're talking about a relatively few compared to billions and billions that if they just united for a common good could definitely take our power back and change it. We could. Now we don't see that because the herd is divided and killing each other, but the possibility remains. So I'm kind of like you. I'm not overly doom and gloom, but I'm also not overly hopeful either. Because I look at my brothers and sisters and say, holy shit. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta laugh at it, because it's a big joke. But yeah, I mean, the hope lies in the individual consciousness. That's how I see it. And, I have had the great fortune of talking to every week. Usually I talk to people all over the world that are the most magnificent, kind-hearted, wonderful, loving human beings. And they're scattered about. We're not all going to be in the same neighborhood. We're all over. We're in Germany. We're in America. We're in Switzerland. We're in California, wherever. And it's been absolutely amazing getting to know people like this. That, okay. And that's what I think it's going to take is us reaching to each other to come together and really look into solutions. And everyone, I think, walking this road, call it whatever, spiritual road or the inner journey, whatever you want to call it, has something to offer. Everyone doing this work has something to bring to the table. So don't sell yourself short either, because you never know. You might have an idea that sparks 10,000 other people. You never know. So I would say that now is the time to really start shining that light, to really be what you are and live it. Live your truth and be it.
Why is that so scary for people?
Because I think that let's put it like this. Before you can walk in your innermost light, you have to walk in your innermost darkness. And that's a place that people don't want to go. We have to deal with our repression and all of the lifetime worth of hurt and abuse and shit that we've buried in the garbage dumpster. Well, we don't want to go mucking through that dumpster because it's ugly and it's smelly and it's scary. It hurts. But we have to do it. If we want to manifest what we say we want, which is freedom and real change, a positive, a new paradigm for experience that actually serves beings instead of enslave us, that's where it begins. And that's why I think people have a real hard time with it, because I don't want to look at that. No. Face the things about me that I hate. Look at the repression that I've been bearing for a lifetime. Who the hell wants to do that? But as scary as it is, I think that's what we need to do. It's not an easy road, and it can really break you down. It could cause nervous breakdown. It could cause psychological upheaval. But if we don't do it willingly, our entire perceptual reality is going to come crashing down. And the people that haven't even attempted to do this are going to be in shock. And I don't want to be anywhere near them when this shit goes. I don't want to be near them because they'll bring you down with them. I don't mean to sound not uncompassionate, but, if that's the road they choose, that's the road they choose. I'd rather gravitate towards like-minders that really could see and really are interested in solutions than to be around the ones that are going to go down with the ship, so to say.
Yeah, but that is also like what you just said. That might feel like a crash landing as well. Yes. So you might as well do the work and look at your own shit.
Yeah. I mean, look a little bit into psychology and discover what it is that makes you tick. Because I'll tell you, your enemy knows all about it, and they know how to push the right buttons. And it's usually, a lot of this is playing on the emotions. If you see like these groups, they're very emotionally reactive. So this group that's doing this, they know that. Oh, and they know how to play it. So I would think that one of the pieces of advice I would give is kind of step back and enter into an observer mode and try not to be so emotionally reactive of these things, and examine the contents of your psyche. We don't like it. It's not, I can tell you from experience, it's not pretty to face our repression. But the gifts waiting on the other side, if you do, you can't even measure. We're talking liberation of the mind and the heart. And that is a gift you cannot put a price on. But it's that willing step. I want to be a beautiful piece of pottery, worked and beautiful, but I don't want to go through the fires of the kiln. Well, then you're just a lump of clay then. Because you have to go through, I don't know if that's a good metaphor. You have to go through the heat. The kiln will burn you and hurt, and it'll leave you as this beautiful piece of art. I guess that's the metaphor. So that kiln represents the repression and the buried shit that we don't want to face about ourselves. But it's a willingness to do it. And, sometimes we might need help and assistance to get through that. And I think that we're going to see that happen in this age of people like us, that are people of conscience, coming together to do just that. Like I said, assistance, there's nothing wrong with that. It's rescue. There's a difference between the two. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
No, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't even try.
Yeah, no, it's dangerous to do that. Because, like I said, picture this. Picture a man drowning, and you throw them the life preserver, and they push it away. So you throw it again, and they push it away. Then what are you going to do? Jump in they'll bring you down with them. You know, hey, you want to drown, drown. And maybe, and I kind of look at it like this too, maybe if we get in the way of that, it's actually doing a disservice to them, because maybe it's their spiritual journey to fall. Maybe that lesson has something to show them. And by me standing in the way of that is actually taking that from them. I don't know. It's just a thought, but, you know, but to me, that's what it is the willingness to really deal with our repressed, subconscious crap, and to really do the inner work and look at ourselves and then consciously decide we're not playing this game anymore, to withdraw our consent from it. At least I think that's the first step.
Yeah. I do not consent.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also, you cannot beat somebody into waking up.
No,
No,
you can't do it. And anybody that's been doing this for some time knows that. We're not here to do that. You know, you've got the rah-rah people, and I've spoken to some of them before, or the ones that get on Facebook and inject all the truth or information. I understand your heart's in the right place, but you're basically spinning your wheels. Far better to focus on, if you're going to do that, focus on people that actually want to hear it, you know, or that will take something and do something useful with that information. But sitting on social networking, being a Facebook activist, you're spinning your wheels. You're never going to get anywhere. You just, you know, that time could be much better spent doing something positive in the community, or working on a book or a blog or whatever, art, you know, in my opinion. And every move you make on that thing is monitored anyway. We know this. So you're just making yourself a target. Hey, CIA, look, it's me.
Yeah, sure. Do you sometimes feel like you're preaching to the choir?
Yes, all the time. Yeah, and every now and then, here's another thing too I would suggest to researchers. And I remember advising this one man. He didn't take my advice, and he wound up in jail for something he did, which was just, anyway. My advice is this: if you're looking into this shit and you're dwelling in the darkness, so to speak, every now and then you got to pull back and focus on some beauty in your life. Because if you spend too long in the darkness, it will consume you. So to me, it's about balancing it out. So if I'm doing research into Tavistock and really putting these things together or whatever, looking at this evil, I need to go out in nature on the weekend and take some pictures and detach myself and rebalance.
Yeah.
Because this guy I was talking about, he was very, he's a 9/11 researcher. It's done a lot of good work. But he was actually publicly calling for the death of certain political leaders on Facebook and YouTube. We need to hang this one, naming them by name. They came and got him and threw him in jail. And I tried to warn him about this. Don't spend too much time in the darkness without rebalancing it out. It'll get you. And, you know, it's really sad to see this happen.
There is a huge, huge difference between being aware of the abyss and staring into it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Once you stare into it and too long, you will get sucked in.
Well, what did Nietzsche say? It stares back at you.
Okay.
If you into the abyss too long, it'll stare back at you. He was right. Yeah. And it will, and it'll consume you. And I think too, come to a point where you got a good idea of the pieces of the puzzle, and then contemplate solutions in your own heart and your own mind. That might be a good balancing mechanism as well. Yeah. Anything creative too. That's another thing I recommend. Find some creative outlet. I don't care what it is. Knitting, poetry, art, music, taking care of animals, anything. Something creative. Because I'll tell you, at least from my experience, that has given me balance, saved my life. Music, if it wasn't for music, I might have blown my head off years ago, because I've been through a lot of things in this life. But to me, I pick up that guitar, I get lost in my world, and I rebalance. For someone else, it might be painting pictures or taking photography or whatever it may be. But I would highly suggest that find a little something creative to do in your life so you can. Human beings we're expressing and we're being creative. To me, we are creators. And to have something, some kind of outlet like that, to me, is very healthy.
Yeah. And in general, staying away from religious mindset. And I do not mean religion as in Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, whatever. I sometimes observe that certain subjects like flat earth, or now this QAnon thing, or whatever, people are so fanatic about it.
Yeah.
It feels like this is almost a religion.
Yes, it is.
And that is something that in the very beginning I listened to some flat earthers.
So did I. I was curious.
Yeah. So, but it turned into this. Yeah, I have no other word. It turned into this religion, and if you do not jump on the wagon right away, you're a shill.
Yep. Yes. When I was active on YouTube, it's amazing. I was putting out all kinds of information, and I never mentioned that one way or the other. And I would be attacked. Hey, you're not talking about this, so everything else you say is a lie. So I did a short presentation how I thought it was a psyop. That's when the death threats came. That's when harassment. Oh my God, they came out of the woodworks. We're gonna kill you. It was incredible. And now what I've noticed, and I've come in contact with some well-meaning people. They're not all, but there are a lot of divide and rule people in that movement. And that's the one thing. If you believe it or not, I'm not going to be belligerent to you at all, as was done to me. I'm not going to do that. But one thing you have to notice, if you don't see it, you're blind. That has been used as divide and rule amongst the, the research community. It has been, whether it's true or not. Let's say it is, just for the sake of argument. Even still, that's been used to cause division in this truth movement or whatever you want to call it. And I've seen people just get belligerent about it because you don't, they insult you, globe-tard, whatever they call you, and you're just playing into the enemy's hands by doing that. I've looked at it too, and I've seen some good arguments, but I just haven't become convinced. I don't believe anything. I try to stay away from beliefs. I'm into ideas because you can always revise ideas when new information comes in. Beliefs usually are set. No, I believe this, and anything that disproves it, I'll just push it away. So, but to me, there's more important issues to be concerned about.
Yeah, because even if, let's say, they make a public announcement tomorrow, the Earth is flat. NASA comes along and there's a huge TV broadcast. What does it change?
Well, yeah, is that going to stop the radiation from pouring into the Pacific? Is that going to stop the genocide in Palestine? Is that going to stop, the banking system from making slaves out of human beings? Is that going to stop the corruption in the Catholic Church? I don't think so. Yeah, really, what does that information really change? And yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know, okay? I've never been to space, but I'm of the mindset that it's a psyop.
Yeah. And
people want to shoot me in the streets for saying it. I can't believe the way I was attacked for making that suggestion. And this was a couple of years back. But I could be big enough to say, okay, some of yous make a legitimate argument, but I haven't been convinced. I'm just not convinced. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because there's other things that are more important to be concerned with, like the 5G. that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That is, to me, far more demanding of our attention. Just my opinion.
Yeah, because that is really a pressing matter.
Yes.
And if I'm going to get fried on a globe or on a plane, that doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. So we'll be enslaved on a globe or a disc. I mean, either you're still a slave. Yeah, I think it was a diversion in my personal opinion. It just appears that way to me. But I will be big enough to say I really don't know.
Mm.
But in my opinion, it's a diversion. And so is the QAnon thing, I believe.
Yeah. You know we will get weird comments, yeah?
Yeah, I'm sure some haters will come out of the woodworks and attack me, but I don't care anymore, you know. I suffered health issues in 2017, and I broke away from doing this for a while to regain myself and to go start doing positive things in the community and to assist. Because I was so overwhelmed, and that could happen too when you do this for a while. You get just bombarded with information, and it became overwhelming. Plus, I suffered some health issues. I had to walk away. And in that time, I realized, you know, my time, for me to bring that homeless man food and help get him off the street eventually, that's a big deal. You know, to him, to me, it wasn't. What's a plate of food? I don't care. To him, it was a big deal. And I realized, wow, you know, just a little bit of something in your own local community goes a long way. So, you know, while we're screaming and bullhorning, Facebook activism and all this shit, take that time and do something really constructive and positive by taking real world action that benefits your community. That's, you know, a little piece of advice. I found that it goes a long way. And if we all did just a little, you know, we could really make some positive change occur.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay. Sometimes I just go off on a tangent, so I apologize for that.
No. That I thought it was brilliant, and we touched on a lot of topics.
Yeah, thank you very much for your invite. It was really nice to get to talk to you. So we should do it again sometime.
Yes, yay! Because I would like to dig deeper in. You made this one video about what was it called? Where you destroyed spiritual myth.
If you have to refresh my memory, is that kind of picking apart the New Age a little bit there?
Yeah.
I still do see it.
Yeah.
Wow, the New Age, the way I see it, the whole New Age movement is the spiritual side of this New World Order.
Yeah.
Right? They got political side. Well, you need the religious side too, because they go together. The New Age movement was born out of a group called the Theosophical Society, and also other organizations too, like Esalen Institute, which I believe I mentioned earlier, and Society for Psychical Research. And they had all their, you know, gurus that they put to the public too. And to me, it's based on theosophy in large part. And if you look at a lot of the doctrines in the New Age, what do they call for? Docility. Just ignore everything evil and focus on the good, and you don't have to do anything, and as if by magic will transcend to the fifth dimension. And that has caught a lot of people, a lot of well-meaning people. And that's another, the New Age is another thing that really needs to be dismantled and exposed for is, again, externalization. Again, it always comes back to outside authority, whatever form it takes, and we need to stop doing that and take it back to within. But yeah, the New Age, I can go on and on about nonsense. Now, like anything else, though, there are some truth sprinkled in there.
Yeah, sure.
Corrupted. Again, the contortionists, like the law of attraction. It is a real, as far as I'm concerned, universal law. Well, it's twisted and sold back to you as some kind of mystical, magical crap. Oh, if I just think about the Mercedes, it'll appear in my driveway. No, it's not. You got to work for that shit. So they take out that key element, which is action. Yes, I believe that creation first begins in the realm of thought. Like, say, I want to build a guitar. Okay, well, it has to start here, but then I have to take the action, actually do it. You can't have one without the other. But yeah, the new age, and there's still people that fall into that. And I've met some of the flakiest people in my life that were involved in that, and I'm just like, oh, you know.
Yeah, and it gets more and more branches.
Yeah, and you better believe that was a creation of the same enemy that we're talking about, these behind-the-scenes players. That was their creation, and I'm coming to the point, I'm not totally sure, but I think the truth movement was too. I don't think they just infiltrated it. I think they created it. Because why not? If you know that your agenda is going to be, eventually people are going to start to catch on, well, shit, control your own opposition. Let's create this movement, and we'll put our agents into it to misdirect people down rabbit holes that don't really matter. And I think that's probably the case.
Yeah.
Not sure, but it makes sense to me. And, you get caught up in it sometimes. And again, I would say balance it out. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to look at the darkness, that's a good thing to become aware, but balance it out with recognizing the beauty that still exists all around us as well. Because there's a lot of it.
Yeah. I think these are beautiful final words. And thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right. Do you want to talk off camera for a few minutes more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Bye, guys.